What is up, fam? It's your boy Sunil. Thank you so much for tapping in with So Real Sports Talk. Today we have a very special show. I have Varuna here with me, and we are starting our first cricket conversation. We're calling the show This Week in Cricket, where we will be talking about everything of the hot topics that are going in cricket for the week, whether it be tournaments, test matches, or just overall team breakdowns and whatnot. So I want to welcome to the So Real Sports Talk family, Varuna. Thank you so much, Varuna, for joining the show with me and being the co-host for the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and really excited about doing this thing because, especially in the Bay Area, there is a lot of interest for cricket, and there are leagues happening. Even once I played a league, there is a T-ball league. It's super hard because
Wow.
there's all these guys. There are some bowlers you won't believe. They are super fast. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's great,
interesting.
man. I'm excited. I know you know a lot about cricket. So we're definitely going to use that big brain of yours. You're looking sharp, coming with the tie on the first show. I appreciate that as well. So basically, just to kind of give you guys an overview of what to expect from the show, really, this is just going to be discussing the hot topics, like I said, in cricket for the week. But before we get started going into the show, what I wanted to do was give each other a chance to talk a little bit about how we got into cricket and discuss a little bit about favorite teams, favorite players, so the fans can get to know us a little better. So go ahead, Varuna, talk about what got you interested in cricket and maybe some of your favorite players as well.
Yes. So I'm from Sri Lanka. So growing up in Sri Lanka, cricket is the only thing that we had as far as entertainment. Because, I mean, we all know that Sri Lanka had a brutal civil war going on for 30 years. So, I mean, everything was chaotic. But cricket is the thing that we only had a hope. Growing up as a kid, I mean, even to this date, I can remember some of the test matches. Australia defeating Sri Lanka in a test match that we should have won in Colombo back in 1992. I think I was like 7 years old. I mean, to this day, I can remember in the second innings, we collapsed against Shane Bourne, Arvind, and everyone. We outscored Australia, scored 520 runs. Then Ramesh Kalavitharana, wicketkeeper batsman, he scored a maiden test century. It was the first time that debutant scoring a century in a test match for Sri Lanka. Everything happened. So all these things filled my childhood memory. Then, of course, 1996, the World Cup win over Australia, the bullies, the big bullies of world cricket, Arvind the Jayasuriya. Then coming back to the later generation that carries the torch, eventually Sangakkara, Maharaja Bharatana. So it was in my blood. I think every Sri Lankan, they are really passionate about cricket. So it's like religion to me. I'm not much a religious man, but cricket, when it comes to cricket, it's my religion. I don't like when somebody argues against a player that I really like. So this precaution to the viewers, I might can get really worried in this discussion sometimes. But favorite player coming from Sri Lanka, I would select Aravind Silva, the greatest batsman Sri Lanka ever produced. Now, when it comes to Sri Lanka, in my opinion, most of the younger generation consider it that Kumar Sangakkara. Yes, he's a great batsman, great stats. But Aravind is the one delivered the World Cup. He didn't have that stats like modern day greats, but you can't play that kind of innings if you are not a great player. So he is my favorite Sri Lankan batsman, cricketer all time.
That's amazing. Great story, man. For me, my entrance into cricket is a little bit different. You know, I was born out here in California, but you know, both my parents are from India. I obviously traveled back and forth to India a bunch of times, and all of my cousins back home in India are big cricket fans, and they were always talking about it. But I didn't really ever get into it because I knew a little bit about it, but never really was explained to it or never took an interest myself. and didn't really get an opportunity to watch it when I was coming here, and didn't talk to anybody about cricket. So it kind of fell off. Then about 2 or 3 years ago, I saw this docu-series on Netflix about Mumbai Indians. I don't know if you remember, if you were
Yes, the IPL, the year that they lost actually.
exactly. So I watched that docu series, and I just ended up getting really into it. I became a huge Mumbai Indians fan. I ended up buying Hotstar so I could watch, the whole IPL tournament, and I've been watching it, ever since I saw that. So really getting into, the T20 leagues, and following the players, and I really enjoy that format. And then obviously the World Cup happened not too long ago. That was really fun to watch. And then now with all the test matches and things of that nature, so it's really been fun. I've really become, a little bit of a nerd with it as well, which, now having the opportunity to really talk about it. As far as my favorite players, they're all going to be Indian players. And like Raghav put up here, my favorite player of all time with India is MS Dhoni, just like Raghav. I think just his ability to play the game cerebrally. He was super fast. He had that helicopter batting style, which was very fun to watch, and just his interviews were really interesting to hear. As far as I know, he's retired internationally. As far as players that are active now on the international level, my two favorite players right now are Hardik Pandya and Ravi Jadeja, just because I love the way that they play in the outfield. I really like the defense that they play. Hardik obviously is an amazing batsman and all-around player, just like Jadeja. I tend to like the all-around players that could bowl, bat, and field. So you'll probably see that as a common theme as far as who my favorite players are. But that's my story, man. Amin, welcome to the show, man. I've been waiting for this as well. Raghav saying Chennai Super Kings for life, but it's all about Mumbai Indians over here. So let's get into it. Obviously, just past, we had the World Test Championship final between New Zealand and India. Waruna, why don't you give us your take on your takeaways from that match, what you felt about it? Obviously, New Zealand took the victory by 8 wickets. So what did you feel about the overall match and, the strategy coming through from both teams?
Yes. So first of all, congratulations to New Zealand. I mean, a team that winning without too many star players. They only have like Ross Taylor, experienced batsman, playing for a long time. Then Kane Williamson, one of the top 3 batsmen in the world, along with Joe Root and Virat Kohli. Again, they have bowlers Tim Southee, Neil Wagner, Trent Boult, and this newcomer Kyle Jamieson. But still, in the game was decided on 6th day. So traditionally, it's 5 days, but it went to the reserve day due to the fact of weather. The rain interrupted time to time, and it had a huge say on the outcome of this game. Eventually, it wasn't a very close contest at the beginning, but end of the day, New Zealand won by 8 wickets quite comfortably. Now, when it comes to Indian, team strategy, the thing I would have changed. You talked about Ravindra Jadeja. He's a super cricketer. I mean, he has the modern day cricketer arrogance into him, because he is a super fielder, good batsman, and as a bowler, if you forget about his batting, forget about his fielding, Ravindra Jadeja can be number 1 spinner in any other international team. I mean, if let's say for some reason he's switched countries, he would straight away walk into any other international team as a number 1 leading spinner. He's that talented. But the problem is India played 5 bowlers. I mean, they toyed with this for a long time. Even the series that they won in Australia, the 4-match test series, they won it 2-1. That series also they played 5 bowlers. But here, I don't think they should have played 5 bowlers, because they have Ishant Sharma, who has improved a lot since what we know Ishan Sharma a few years ago. Then they have Bumrah. Bumrah is a number one, I would say number one fast bowler in the world.
Right.
In any, I mean, all the formats combined, Bumrah is a great asset that you have. Then you have Mohammad Shami. Shami is a guy who again has that ability plus very high confidence. Then of course you have Ashwin. Ashwin is underrated because most of the media and cricket analysts talk about Nathan Lyon being the number one spinner in the world, but I do not agree. Ravichandran Ashwin is the number one spinner in the world. I mean, if not for India, he would have played in all three formats for any other international team.
Right.
Ashwin cannot find a place in one day international or T20 team in India. I mean, that speaks for itself how much talent India has. They have so much variety. They can play Yuzvendra Chahal, uh, and I mean Krunal Pandya, the younger brother of Hardik Pandya, in
Mhm.
220 and one day, sorry, T20 and one day format. So there is a lot of variety. But Ashwin can control one end and he can take wickets. So if they play four bowlers, I mean three fast bowlers, one spinner, they could have played an extra batsman. Most probably Hanuma Vihari, he was in the squad. He could have played. The thing is, chasers were Pujara. Pujara could not get any big scores because as the number three batsman, Pujara previously had a very good stint with I can't remember which count he played, but he had a very good time with England playing in the England county cricket. So he had the experience. The other guy is Ajinkya Rahane, the vice captain.
Mhm.
He played well in the first innings, but second innings, I did not like the shot he played. It's a short arm jab straight to mid wicket. So the ploy was set up, bowler bowling from left armer, bowling from over the wicket to Rahane. He took the bait. So these players could have stepped up a little bit more, but I'm not going to blame it on batsmen because the highest individual score of the game was 54, scored by Devin Conway. So if India had that extra batsman, they could have dragged the game a bit more, maybe pushed it to a draw, or I mean, think when you think about it, none of the teams scored 250 runs in any inning. So if India gave a target to New Zealand like 200 plus, maybe 220, India could have had a chance, maybe defending the game. I mean, going for a draw, or with the Ashwin and Jadeja coming into the play, make a difference. So that's where I think India got it tactically wrong playing Jadeja, not because he's a bad player, but given the game situation, they should have just kept Jadeja back and play the extra batsman because I don't see a need for India to play five bowlers because all these four bowlers, all these fast bowlers, they are really good, well talented. If you take few years back when India playing these fast bowlers, Sahir Khan is most of the time the guy who was consistently performing. Other guys would come in, Srishant and Ashish Nehra, but they weren't supporting Sahir Khan very much. But these bowlers, they have this Australian mentality because when Australia was on their peak, they were playing as a pack. You have McGrath, you have Damian Fleming, then you have Bradley. All these guys hunt together. Even then Mitchell Johnson, uh, like Pat Cummins, the latest fast bowlers, they have this pack mentality. Now India got that because that's why they proved and won the Test series in Australia. That's a huge victory.
Right.
Never an Asian side has won a Test series in Australia. Sri Lanka have never won even a Test match in Australia. So they have the resources. I think if they corrected that, the results would have been different. So that's my take on strategic point in terms of the final.
Raghav believes that India should have brought a true swing bowler, and that may have played dividends. I understand where you're coming. And unfortunately, obviously, hindsight is 2020. However, I feel like I know you said I don't want to put it on the batters, but in my estimation, I just feel like when you have the type of talent that India has with the bat, the reason why they bring that extra, all rounder in Jadeja is because you expect those top 4 or 5 batsmen to be able to carry the team. You don't feel like it should go to where the sixth batsman, seventh batsman are needed to really gain a victory. And you feel like with that combination of having the type of bowlers, like you said, with a guy like Bumrah, who played decent but didn't get as many wickets as he probably should have or is expected to for India to win. Ashwin had a very good series. Getting multiple wickets, but I really feel like India brings in those type of bowlers because they feel like if they get the right type of score through their batsmen, that their bowlers then become even more difficult to be able to contend with when you're shooting for a high score, right? And India just didn't put up the score that they needed to. They put up a very mundane score, which obviously New Zealand didn't really worry about too much, and were able to get to that level very quickly. So I think that India plays more of that complementary style, and that's just their philosophy going into these, especially at these test matches, where they believe they're going to have a high score with their batting, and then their bowlers become pretty hard to bat on. So I think this is more a disappointment on the batting side. They didn't put up the type of scores, even if there wasn't one individual player that had huge numbers. I still feel like overall as a team, each player should have put up another 10, 15 runs. And now we're talking about a score that's more manageable to defend and, be able to overall take that victory. So once again, India being the best team on paper, but falling short of actually getting, the victory, which kind of is the running theme right now with this India team, going in as the favorites, but coming out without being champions. But that's my kind of take. I don't know if you disagree with that or not, but I just feel like they needed to put up a bigger score, and then their bowlers become, even harder to manage against.
Yeah, actually, my takeaway is different on that. Basically, I believe that is where India Indian team were forced to play a game that is disadvantageous to them. Because here is the reason. Now, prior to this uh, championship match, New Zealand were in England. They played 2 test matches against England. So basically, they didn't play any practice matches. They played against the home team, because the final happened in England. So
Right.
they played 2 matches. So in cricket, it's really important, the tour games. But here the team getting 2 games to play against one of the best sides in the world and prepare for the final. And there is one interesting fact. Now, in the final, I said that Devin Conway, he is the guy who scored 54 crucial runs in the New Zealand first innings. Devin Conway played the final game. That was just his 3rd test match. Where did that 2 test matches came from? The matches he played against England.
Wow.
He was the highest scorer. He scored a brilliant double century as a debutant. So if you put him as a debutant to the final match, it would have been different. The pressure factor comes in. But he was already had 2 matches, get used to the situation, conditions, and come the final time, he scored valuable 54 runs. Second innings, again, another 19 runs. So that 73 runs really mattered. It made a difference in the game. So that's why I think to begin with, India was playing with a very disadvantaged situation. Other thing is, now this game, now we discuss about India should have played another swing bowler. What is the New Zealand strength? Their strength is swing bowling. Trent bowled Team Southie, Neil Wagner. Neil Wagner is not a typical fast bowler who doesn't have that much of speed, who can break through, break your batting lineup and take wickets. But if there's a swing, because all the days it rained, and especially in even in the late July in English conditions, for New Zealand bowlers, it's like playing at their home. So ICC should have considered these facts. When you play important game like finals, at least it should have been early August or mid-August in English summer. That is where the time that pitches, especially if we played the final like ground in Surrey Oval, that has some assistance to the spinners as well. You had the bounce because Jadeja, if you saw, he could not get that much turn or anything. But
Right.
if you played like that kind of a surface, that would have leveled the playing field. So it was like India always on the back foot, uh, not just because of their problem, the way ICC planned and everything. The India and England Test series coming after Championship final. Now, ICC, International Cricket Council, is notoriously famous to make good events, the big events, into a smaller ones. They have done that previously. If they planned properly, they could have get Ireland. Okay, Ireland will play one match against New Zealand while England plays India. Then they switch. India plays Ireland, then New Zealand plays England. So both teams will have not practice matches, actual test matches getting into the final, and Ireland getting much needed test match exposure
Experience.
as
Hmm.
right. So if we planned that way and got the final in proper timing, even if you remember the last World Cup, I mean 2019, the earlier matches were washed out even in July because of
Right.
the English weather.
Hmm.
So the late August was the proper time to have this advantage. Pitchers get drier, so then you have fast bowlers have something, spinners have something, batsmen can play true shots because there is no point of having a final match that no team cannot score 250 runs. That's where I don't blame Indian batsmen from the very beginning due to maybe it is due to the scheduling of the international games and such, but
Right.
ICC should have done better and especially choose a location if it is the World Test Championship final, because every time players, the administration talk about test match is that is the pinnacle of cricket. They say that is the most important format. If you think that is the most important format, then treat the World Test Championship final as it should be. So India was, I would say, unlucky.
I'm sure tons of Indian fans are cheering you on right now, Varuna, because they probably feel the same way. Obviously, New Zealand ended up winning. You got to play the game that's in front of you. So, tip of the hat to them. We have Ryan Bilal. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong, Ryan, but do you have to drink beer to play cricket? That is not a requirement, Ryan. However, cricket fans are wild. There's a lot of beer being drunk in the stands, but none on the field with the players. But Varuna, I think we did a pretty great job as far as going over the World Test Championship finals. One of the reasons why they couldn't move it into August is because there's a big tournament that's happening in August, and that is the T20 World Cup that's going on. So let us talk a little bit about the overall tournament and who you believe in this format is the favorites and who you feel are some dark horses that might be able to contend in this tournament as well.
Yes, so we can do an in-depth analysis in the coming weeks,
Right.
but for now, let's give us some not an in-depth, but just a scratch of the surface to our fans. So
Uh-huh.
I believe when it comes to T20 World Cup, India and West Indies are my favorites because India at this moment they have a nice headache. because they have a selection headache on their hands. Because the reason is right now the Indian national team, they are playing practice matches for English test tour, while they are not the second string, but they are kind of B team is playing Sri Lankan national team on India Sri Lanka one day and T20 tour. And on that tour, there have been massive performances, like one of your favorites, Mumbai Indians, Surya Kumar
Right.
Yadav. He's brilliant over there. Then
He
Prithvi.
better make the team. He better
Yeah.
make the team this year.
So you have Rishabh Pant.
Yeah.
I mean, batsman, you have Kohli. I mean, when it comes to Virat Kohli, there is no concept of whether he's in form or out of form. He's always in form. When it comes to big tournaments, he always has that kick. He delivers. And guys like Shikhar Dhawan, he's out of this team. I mean, Shikhar Dhawan is an opener who would have played all formats in any other team. And you have Rohit Sharma. And these guys, not just they are on their peak of their careers, experience wise, exposure wise, they know what to do. You have Jasprit Bumrah. Bhuvneshwar Kumar was doing pretty well in Sri Lanka at this moment. And Krunal Pandya, I saw he was delivering some fantastic spells. So everywhere you have so much of talent. So let's get into deep level next week. But for the moment, I would say it's India and West Indies, just because West Indies, they always come when it comes to T20, they have that advantage, big hitting power players. So that's where I take the two favorite teams. But then you have England. England might be a team that challenge these two teams. And if there are any dark horses, I would take New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand haven't proven anything, but they can be. Again, they have the tendency when it comes to T20, they haven't proved anything. Even in the last few T20 World Cups, they reach to semi-finals, quarter-final stages, and just go off. So I think they can be a dark horse.
Yeah, and I'm right along there with you, Varuna. I think, the top four teams are definitely India, probably being the favorite for all of the reasons you talked about. They just have the most depth and have the right type of makeup of team for this type of format. West Indies, the same type of thing. In this condensed T20 format, obviously being able to have sprinters, meaning people that could throw the ball really hard, people that could hit the ball really far. Obviously, that gets accentuated in a 20 over type setting. I also think that Australia is always going to be a tough team just because they have they have the depth and just the pedigree of being competitive at any level. And then my fourth was going to be England, just because they're coming off of a World Cup. They obviously have some, really great talent that could definitely make waves. And like I said, in this tournament, you could have a team when it could be just about two or three players, a few batters that could go deep, a few bowlers that could get hot at the right time, and that could change the overall makeup of your team, which is why I believe my dark horse is actually going to be South Africa. And the reason why I think South Africa could make a name is because they have one of the most dominant bowlers in T20 in Kasada, and also they have Quentin de Kock as a very strong T20 batsman as well. So with those two players, if they hit stride at the right time, that could be enough to carry a team, into some victories that may have been, victories that they couldn't have got in any other form. But in T20, having two or three stars really is going to be what sets you apart. So those are kind of my favorites and my dark horses as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's do an in-depth analysis next week.
For sure. But overall, this is, to me, the most exciting tournament to watch because it's all action. There's strategy involved, but it's really, you can have your stars show up, have the big stars show up, show out, and can dominate a tournament, which makes it really fun to watch. So we'll definitely get more in depth in future shows. So let's move on. Obviously, this tournament initially was supposed to be played in India. Due to COVID, it's moved now. So tell me now that the venue has changed. How do you feel like this is going to affect India's title chances moving forward?
Yeah. So I don't think it will affect India's title chances. The primary reason being the four locations would be Dubai, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, and Oman. Muscat. So these all these Indian players, they have the experience playing in UAE because IPL was held in UAE previously, so they know these conditions. Another thing is that these pitches, they are not going to change too much from what they get in India. Might be lower on the scoring side. If you take like Wankhede Stadium, the Mumbai Indian home ground, it's a very good high scoring pitch. Again, in Chandigarh, you have Kings Exide Punjab. Their pitch is a very good batting friendly pitch. But overall, the venue should not take any effect from Indian team's performance. The other aspect would be that when it comes to international tournaments, ICC conducting tournaments, the pitch curators are the local guys, but still the responsibility for how that pitch affects what kind of a pitch they are going to prepare is decided by ICC. Even though India is that is the practice. Even though whatever the country is hosting, they cannot prepare a pitch that suits them, that gives them an additional advantage. So India, I believe, already prepared for this because right now the way India team is preparing, their confidence, their level of talent surpasses whatever the conditions that is put in front. I mean, yes, we talked about the conditions were being at a disadvantages for them in the World Test Championship final, but there are a lot of factors, and it's just a one-off game. So that's why I think India maybe this works, especially it's getting delayed for another 1 year means India has found another set of young players. So day by day, it's like magically these new players appearing in all corners of India. So I think they have a very good setup environment. So this is just another home away from home for India.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And this actually, I think, can benefit them because of the pressure that I think is going to be on this team, right? So if you're playing in front of your home fans, obviously there's a lot of pressure. India is going to be one of the favorites. They're going to be expecting a lot. So this can be actually be kind of like a blessing in disguise because India has come up so short in the last few major tournaments as far as being able to actually hoist one of these trophies, right? So the T20 is a tournament where India expects to be very strong. If they're playing at home, obviously in front of those fans, they're going to expect them to get that victory. So why this is beneficial, I think, is much like you said. Obviously, IPL is played in Dubai this last upcoming season. So a lot of pretty much every single player that's going to be on the India team is in the IPL and played on these pitches. So and these wickets. So I believe that this is going to be beneficial to India because they could get away from all of that pressure that they hear on a consistent basis playing under their home lights, but still have that familiarity like it is a home match because they played all of those matches in the IPL in that. And obviously knowing the pitch that you're playing on is a definite benefit. You just highlighted that when we were talking about how New Zealand may have had the upper edge against India in the test match, but
Yes.
test match finals. But every single Indian player has played on this pitch. Can't be said the same for these other teams who only had a few players here and there that were a part of that tournament. So I think that gives India actually a leg up over the rest of the competition just because of that familiarity. And then also, even though there will still be pressure on them, it won't be as intense as when they're playing in front of their home fans. So I expect to see the best out of India because of these circumstances. And, hopefully they're hoisting that trophy at the end of it. But what's interesting about this tournament, Waruna, is not every team is set yet, right? So we have the qualifier bracket with 8 teams that are fending for the last 4 spots in the Super 12. So give us just like a brief breakdown of the 8 teams that are in the qualifier bracket and who you think are the favorites to come out of these qualifier brackets.
Yes. First thing is, I really believe this format is the best format because some of these teams, I mean, you don't deserve to be in the, I mean, final
Super
main
12.
competition.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because see, I mean, if you have been playing for very long, that's not an excuse. You have to perform. So let's first take Group B. So Group B, we have Bangladesh, Scotland, Papua New Guinea, and Oman. So out of this, Bangladesh are the clear favorites. They will be the group winners. But there is one thing. Now, when it comes to Bangladesh, they have been sometimes overconfident because if you remember in 2014, they had a chance to beat India and I mean possibly knock out India in the group stages in the T20 World Cup. They had to score 2 runs in 3 balls, and Mushfiqur Rahim made a mess of it. And India, I mean MS Dhoni, your favorite player,
Absolutely.
so he was a genius captain. He made sure India doesn't lose the game. I mean, I can't even to this date I can't believe how India won that match. So that was fantastic in terms of Indian performance. So Bangladesh have these players. Mushfiqur Rahim. Now Mushfiqur Rahim is 34. Shakib Al Hassan, he is 34, and Mahamadullah. Mahamadullah recently retired from Test cricket. He is 36. So these players, this might probably there will be 2023 50 over World Cup, yes, but other these other players, for them, in terms of T20 format, this might be their last chance. But the problem for Bangladesh is in big tournaments, all these 3 players that we talked about, they have the ability to perform, but they don't perform collectively together. In 2019 World Cup, Shakib Al Hassan had a fantastic tournament. He scored 500 odd runs. Mohammedullah, 2015 World Cup, scored, I believe, 3 centuries, coming at number 3. Mushfiqur Rahim, Asia Cup, he was good. But if these 3 players can collectively perform, because Bangladesh always seems to have a weakness when it comes to T20, they cannot figure out what's their correct team composure or what their strategy. But right now, they have 2 key bowlers. They have figured out 2 key bowlers. One is Mehdi Hassan Miraz. Mehdi Hassan Miraz has improved a lot as a bowler in Test cricket, any format. He's really good. He can bat. And they have Mustafizur Rahman. Mustafizur Rahman, I mean, he doesn't have the same magic when he came into international cricket as a 19-year-old. But this left arm, his left arm, not a fast bowler. I mean, not a fast bowler in the sense he has those varieties. He's not like 145, 150k bowler, but he has enough varieties that can fox the batsman, make them play false shots. So if they can figure out that, I mean, Shakib Al Hassan, if he can bowl his 4 overs economically and contribute with the bat and keep their composure, even in the main event, they can go into maybe semifinals. Might be a reality for this team, given that they play with confidence and make sure they don't panic in crucial situations. So Bangladesh is my number 1 team from Group B. Then we have Scotland and Oman. So Oman is interesting. They have been doing well. Their coach is former one of star Sri Lankan batsman Duleep Mendis. But I'm not sure whether they can make a real threat to Scotland, because Scotland is a team have players consist of experience in playing English counties. So if their captain Kyle Coates, he has a really good experience. Callum MacLeod is a very good batsman, hard-hitting batsman. So these guys can take you to the next stage. So my pick from Group B is Bangladesh and Scotland. Now comes to the Group A, which gives me hope personally. There, I feel this might be the kick that Sri Lanka eventually needs, because this is a group of death. Because only two teams will qualify for the next round, and we have Sri Lanka, Ireland, Netherlands, and Namibia. For the moment, let's forget about Namibia. I mean, we cannot forget about Namibia because Namibia under 19 team did beat Sri Lanka under 19 team in the past World Cup. So that's their legacy. So, but still, their senior team not up to that. You were going to say something.
Right. No. I was just saying that, yeah, Nambia is a team that may in the future, 2, 3, 4 years, might be able to contend in a tournament like this, but definitely, might be a few years away from really being able to contend against these other three teams. So go on.
Yes. So Netherlands have already proved that in 2014 in the main event they did beat England. They have beaten other teams, but the problem is Netherlands have Peter Sella still in their ranks, but they are without Ryan Ten-Duche. Ryan Ten-Duche is 41 years now. He is not playing for Netherlands. So he is a caliber of player who could have played for any major international sides. He was a very good batsman, played a lot of county cricket over the years. So without him, still I think Netherlands can do something. Then comes Ireland. Last week they did beat South Africa in a one-day international tournament, and basically they tied the tournament 1-1. One game was washed away due to rain, but they were able to score a series against South Africa. They have really good players. So the only problem that I see is both these sides, that Ireland and Netherlands, given the conditions, that spinning conditions, how will they cope up with that? Because usually they have these seamers, medium pacers, fast bowlers, hard hitting batsmen, but when it comes to spin, they might struggle because these two teams do not have players who play in IPL, so they have very limited experience and exposure playing in subcontinent and places like Dubai. So so that's where I see they are at a disadvantage, but I'm going to say this might be a group of death. Sri Lanka doing really terribly at this time. Two of these teams have a chance to beat Sri Lanka and eliminate Sri Lanka from the qualifying level as well. Sri Lanka might be out even before the main tournament begins. So we can talk about Sri Lanka next.
And that's a great segue, because that was one of the most interesting things that I saw with Sri Lanka. Wasn't one of these teams that made the top 8, right? So they're now having to earn their position into the actual tournament. So obviously, Varuna, we know Sri Lanka is the country you come from. This is your favorite team. You are the expert when it comes to Sri Lankan cricket. So tell us a little bit about why Sri Lanka is in this position. And, you've kind of hedged that Sri Lanka might not even make it into the tournament based off of what group they're in the qualifier. So tell us a little bit about why Sri Lanka is in this position and what you feel like is realistic expectations of this team.
Yes. So now when we think about it, it's kind of a tragedy because if you think about the last decade from 2010, to 20, Sri Lanka played 3 World Cup finals. 2011 50 over World Cup where India eventually won under MS Dhoni's captaincy. Then 2012, Sri Lanka played the T20 World Cup final at home against West Indies. West Indies won that game. In 2014, playing against India, the 2020 World Cup, Sri Lanka won the side against the side led by MS Dhoni. But that side has Sri Lankan legends, Sangakkara, Mahela, then Lasith Malinga, you had Nuwan Kulasekara, all these bowlers, plus Angelo Matthews. So it was a very good side. But just after 4 years being the number one 22, after 5 years being ranked number one T20 team in the world, being world champions, we are fighting for a spot in the main event. You asked me the reason. So the best answer I can give you in a nutshell is this might be confusing. Sri Lanka cricket is destroying Sri Lanka cricket. Now, Sri Lanka cricket is the governing body
Right.
responsible for Sri Lanka cricket. That's why I said Sri Lanka cricket is destroying Sri Lanka cricket
Okay.
because everything is basically now politicized. Sri Lanka is still playing outdated first class tournament where they have 24 first class teams. We have just 22 million population. India has close to 1.2 billion population. How many first class teams do India have? Just 28. It was 27. Recently, they introduced a one more team. Now they have 28. But Sri Lanka already has 24 teams. Some of these teams, they are not relevant. The first class tournament is just 3-day tournament. Schools tournament, 2-day tournament, but not producing good players because they have packed the schedules, and some of these games the 4 innings just ended up less than 2 days. Most of these players, when it comes to international level, you can see if you compare the crop of young generational talent coming out from India, England, there is a huge gap because that team, the team, I would say, even under 19 team of India at this moment can give a good fight for Sri Lankan national team. That's the status of Sri Lankan cricket.
Wow.
Because yes, I mean it's
Tough for you to say, but
useful. Yes,
yeah.
but that's a reality because what Sri Lanka is doing it every now and then they change coaches, they change squads because if you take ask any random Sri Lankan that you meet in the street, can you name 11 players in the squad that they played game yesterday? They might say, I'm sorry, I don't know. But 10 years back, 15 years back, we could tell, okay, who played that game, who didn't play that game, because there was such consistency when it comes to players. There were core group of players that around 10, 15 players who have came through the ranks playing this domestic cricket. I mean, how many? I mean, right now we don't have many players playing in IPL because that's a very good measurement because if you get selected to IPL, that means the
You're the
other
best of the best.
were best of the best. But after Lasith Malinga, Sri Lanka does not have any player that can make an impact at IPL. But when IPL initially started, we have from even Sanat Jayasuriya played. He opened alongside with Sachin Tendulkar for
Mhm.
Mumbai Indians when the IPL initially started. All these players, even some of these players that are not great players, for example, Chamara Kapugedera played IPL, Fervis Maharu, uh, all these players, Thirin Tushara Murando, all these players played IPL because for the conditions and everything, these players uh, had a place in these teams. But right now, Sri Lanka don't have that much of players. We have only a few players that we can at least have a hope. Vandu Hasaranga, up and coming, a young wrist spinner. Sri Lanka was struggling to find white ball spinners. Vandu Hasaranga is a very good wrist spinner. He can bat. Then Sri Lanka have some other players like Avishka Fernando who were at the hard hitting top order batsman, but again lack consistency sometimes. Decision making is really bad. Then you have some players like Dasun Shanaka, Bhanuka Rajapaksha. So there are some talent there, but the problem is they are not clinical enough.
And not tested enough, right? Because especially in world and when you're playing these national teams, these guys like India and West Indies, these guys all know each other because they've been playing with each other on the same teams for so long, and you're not overturning the whole team like it seems like you're seeing with Sri Lanka, where you never really know who that core is. Before they had a core of players that you knew were always going to be on the team, but now that core is not as visible as it used to be. Maybe it's there, but they're not playing on an international level as prominent as those teams that you were rattling off with all of the victories and the championships that Sri Lanka was winning at that time, you knew who that core was, and that core was visible on an international level over a lot of tournaments. It wasn't just IPL, but they were playing in multiple different leagues and performing at a great level. And you're right, you haven't seen that out of Sri Lanka in the recent past, and obviously it's affected their team in a way where now they're playing into a tournament rather than being, one of the favorites like they might have been, a few years ago.
Yes, the thing about that not having a proper domestic structure, because you can't do anything without proper structure. Doesn't matter it's cricket or anything. Even in your life, you have to have a proper platform, proper
Right.
basement. That's why you see Indian, especially even England, the players who are coming out, they don't get much time to get used to international level. If you take like Rishabh Pant came through IPL, yes, but when it comes to international level, he played some fantastic innings. If you remember Shikhar Dhawan,
Right.
Shikhar Dhawan played fantastically well against India, as far as I remember, when he made his debut in Test match. And there are a number. Even Surya Kumar Radev, he's a, you can say that he's a veteran in domestic level, but he's performing really well in international level. But that's why, because even if you take out some veteran in Sri Lankan club cricket domestic format, when it comes to international level, they would perform like 18-year-old, 20-year-old. They would really struggle. Even though they have 10 years domestic experience, they can't perform at international level because the quality of the tournament that they are playing in, it is really low. So that's why India and other Australia, South Africa, England, that's why the younger players who are coming through their ranks always performs way above Sri Lanka. Unless, as I started this topic, unless Sri Lanka cricket make really changes, Sri Lanka cricket will remain the same.
Absolutely. And I like how you put it. Obviously, this tournament is a big wake up call for the whole, Sri Lankan cricket, because, this is a big black eye on a nation that's been so proud, cricket nation, especially this I-20 format, which tends to be a format where they've been able to shine at the highest level. For them to have fallen out of grace so quickly, basically overnight, it seems like. Hopefully that means that they need to, wake up and make some changes so such a proud nation could actually put together a team to contend once again. But yeah, Varuna. So, that's basically what we had for today. I think it was a great show, Varuna. You did obviously brought all the facts and all of the nuance which we wanna bring. Guys, this is something we're gonna do weekly. Every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern. If anybody's still awake, God bless you for staying awake and watching the show with us. But please stay engaged with us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow Varuna on Twitter. He also has a lot of great 49ers info. He's a writer for all 49ers blog. But thank you for tuning in with us. Varuna, any last words before we leave?
I enjoyed it a lot because especially the comments and everything inspired me. So it was nice to talk cricket with someone, because all we did back in Sri Lanka was talk about cricket.
Right.
So that's why sometimes our mothers, our wives, they hate us. Okay, when we talk about this cricket, but finally I got a proper chance to talk it through.
Absolutely, man. And next week, we're going to go more in depth about the brackets. We're going to go more in depth about the teams, kind of guess who we feel like are going to be the rosters for the World Cup T20 finals. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And like we always say, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Varun.
There is one question I wanted to answer that before we leave off from Raghav. So Raghav asked whether the losing 2011 World Cup loss worse than the Super Bowl loss for you. Yes, it is. Because the reason is we lost the 27 50-over World Cup to Australia. Adam Gilchrist played a blind 145 runs. Then 2009 we were in the T20 World Cup final against Pakistan, again lost it. And 2011, that final, Mahela Chavathan scored one of the brilliant centuries that you can ever see. In the World Cup final, Sangakkar was the captain, but he got out, Dilshan got out. And Sri Lanka got a very good competitive score, 274. And add to that, Lasith Malinga was able to remove Sachin and Virendra Sehwag. I think India was like 35 for 2. And we were already started seeing, okay, the World Cup is coming to Sri Lanka. Then again, your favorite player, MSD, he walked in. I mean, that is the quality of a true captain. I mean, when you need the most, you step up and you take over. So that's what he did. He didn't send Yuvraj because Yuvraj was the man of the series in that 2011 World Cup campaign. But Dhoni stepped up and he got the game through. And India finished the game in style. Dhoni hit a 6 against Juan Kulasekara, winning that World Cup. It's an iconic moment. I think that nation of 1 billion, I think, enjoyed. And I remember Sunil Gavaskar is saying Sachin Tendulkar carried this nation for over 20 years and 24 years. And this is the day that we carry Sachin Tendulkar. I think that's a great statement because if India lost that game, Sachin would have ideally retired without any glory at World Cup. But the rest of the team, MSD, got together and gave that present to Sachin. I think still it hurts, but I'll now look at the positives. At least he got what he deserved.
Yeah, it was a great moment for India cricket. Definitely, got the win and the victory for Sachin Tendulkar, who honestly, looking back at his career, if he didn't have a World Cup, that would have been, probably tough to have such a brilliant career and not be able to hoist that trophy. And then that really, confirmed MS Dhoni as the next wave of champion or next wave of superstar for India. And it was a great tournament. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of Sri Lanka, but hey, it was a great game to watch for casuals and obviously India fans. So guys, that is our show. Please, we want to build this show up. We want more and more people to be a part of it. So if you have friends and family that are cricket fans, please tell them about the show, share the videos, have them tune in because it only gets as big as you guys want it to be. But till next time, keep it so real. You guys have a beautiful night.
Okay, good night.